What's up, everybody? We're here again, another amazing episode of Stay True Conversations. Very special guest today. You guys may have seen a few little clips of him on my Instagram at the ketamine clinic, but today we're going to go even deeper. Right now, we've got Dr. Rudy.
Hey, everybody.
Glad we can make
Happy
this
to
happen.
be here, man. That connection we had when we met first, and then doing the ketamine clinic and really connecting deeper. I'm really happy to be here, and we have a lot to cover.
Yeah, we do have a lot to cover. This will probably be one installment of a series we'll do, and I think there's a ton we can cover and inform and educate people on nowadays. And just a little background, I met Dr. Rudy about 2 months ago down here in Miami Beach. Connected, had a lot in common: men's health, hormone optimization, biohacking, psychedelic for mental health therapies. And, I went to the clinic, I did a ketamine session, amazing experience. And now I want to dive a little bit deeper because it's really bigger than even that. It's a mind, body, soul. And I've worked with a lot of doctors over the years in my medical business all over the country. There's very few that think like this. So it's very special, and I'm very excited. So why don't we go ahead, just who are you? Where are you from? How'd you start?
Definitely. So again, thanks for the introduction. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, my journey, and then what I really want us to go deep today is talking about men's health and the epidemic of low testosterone that we're seeing. And not only state the problem, I'm going to come up with easy, actionable steps of solutions. What can you do to get yourself better? So I'm originally from Haiti. Important to know, I'm a proud Haitian. My dad is German, but my mom is Haitian. I was born and raised in Haiti. Did my first year of med school in Haiti. Then I came to the U.S. to finish my education. Unfortunately, lots of political problems. In Haiti, I moved here in 1991. My first job was Dunkin' Donuts. My second job was Wendy's. Then I went to undergrad. I had to learn English. I came here not knowing English. Then I went to undergrad, University of Florida. Then Miami, University of Miami Med School, full scholarship. My parents couldn't pay for it. I had to work really hard, really push myself to it. And I became a doctor, which was always my dream. And my dream to become a doctor was to really help people. So sometimes we forget, doctors, sometimes we get into the machine of insurance medicine, HMO medicine destroys the healing out of us. So I was lucky enough that at first I was working in the hospital, being what is called a hospitalist, working in ICU, emergency room, saving lives. I liked it, but it was a lot of work. Then I stepped out of this and I became into preventive medicine. And that's when I went into the world of functional medicine, regenerative medicine, optimization medicine, root cause medicine, whatever we want to call it. But it's basically biohacking. Biohack yourself, because I did not like the paternalistic type of medicine, which is traditional medicine, where you see a doctor for 15 minutes. The usual reflex is here's a prescription, right? And then let me just help you to not die. That's not good enough for me. So I wanted to help people, empower people to really take matter into their own hands and prevent disease, and not only prevent disease, thrive. Be the best version of yourself. That's why we were put here in this earth, not just to survive, but to thrive. So that's when I got into the biohack movement, right? Biohack yourself. I say I'm a MD, PhD. I have my medical degree and my biohacking degree, because biohacking brings back the power to people. So about 15 years ago, I started a weight loss clinic, because there's no question that the lowest hanging fruit of wellness is nutrition. It's controlling your weight, watching what you eat. So I started a weight loss clinic. Then I got more training. I trained into learning how to do hormone replacement, because we're only as strong as our hormones. Our hormones determine who we are and how we interact with the outside world. And unfortunately, in a highly toxic environment, there are those toxins called endocrine disrupting chemicals that are disrupting our endocrine system, including our insulin resistance. We have obesity. 70% of the population eats either overweight or obese. 40% have prediabetes or diabetes. Heart attacks, heart disease is killing us. Cancer, Alzheimer's disease. And guess what? All of those diseases come from the same basic principle of inflammation. We are a highly inflamed society because of the toxins around us and our eating and our inactivity our reliance on dopamine releasing addiction, the phone, porn. So there are so much things that we've gone away from our ancestral way of living, right? Our ancestors would not recognize the way we're living now. So no wonder we're seeing so much disease, so much dis-ease. That's what disease is. Yeah. We're not at ease. We're not the best version. So what can we do to gain back again? And my view, although I'm DMD, I'm not the one that's going to do that for you. I'm going to empower you, give you the tools, but at the end of the day, it's up to each individual to get better. That's why I like with the biohacking movement. Biohacking movement is when you take on charge of your health, and then you find the right information, the right doctor, the right nutritionist, the right life coach to help you get there. But it's up to you.
Yeah. Which I agree with everything being said, because I feel like we've been blind to it for a long time. It's like not until the last 2 years have I walked into a grocery store now and I look at everything just like poison. I mean, I was in Trader Joe's last night and I'm like, and I definitely wasn't reading labels a year ago. That's new to me too. But even what kind of oils are they cooking? And it's such a different game. And I know, I talk about this quite often with friends of mine about the testosterone epidemic, right? And the big question is, okay, why? Why do I have 50% less testosterone at my age than my father?
Yeah.
And that's, and I'm not a doctor, but my conclusions, my theories are food, environment, and now they're even saying clothing. If you could give some tips, right? What are the biggest endocrine disruptors that we could avoid?
Yeah. So first, what you said is really important. There was a great article on New York Times that says you'll never be the man your father was.
Yes.
Because testosterone of our generation, your generation, with 20 years difference, I think, is about 50% of what your parents, maybe my parents or your grandparents were. Yeah. So there's been a precipitous decline in testosterone levels. And what I try to explain to everybody, our genes didn't change that much. Humans did not evolve to have such low levels of testosterone. So they've documented that at some point, even in the 90s, normal testosterone was up to 1,500. Like our ancestors had way higher levels of testosterone. And over the past 30 to 40 years is when you've seen that precipitous decline in testosterone. And it's been also accompanied by a decline of sperm count. So testosterone has gone down 50% over the past 40 years. Sperm count has declined 52% over the last 40 years. Is that a coincidence? Is that our genes change that much? Genes don't change that much in 1 or 2 generations. Genes change over multiple generations. So it has to be the environment. It has to be something that was introduced to our biological system that is disturbing our endocrine system that much. And what is it, right? This is the big question. And just like in medicine, it's never just one thing. It's multifactorial. So definitely the food that we eat. As you said, you went to Trader Joe's, which is still one of the better places to buy food. Yeah. But you look, everything is in a package, everything is in seeds, oils, everything is ultra processed, and we know how dangerous ultra processed foods. Number one is toxins. So back after World War II, right, the motto of 3M, the company, was better living through chemistry. And there's no questions that if you look at our life today compared to 40, 60 years ago, we have more comfort. Sure. Plastic has helped us significantly. Try to live a day without using plastic, right? I tried at my home. I changed all of my food items. I don't microwave food. I don't drink a water bottle. But still, plastic is everywhere. We produce about 350 million tons of plastic a day. Less than 10% of it is recycled. Wow. And, think about this. When you eat a meal, you throw away your plastic. Even if you recycle, that's going to stay in the environment for years and years and years. Next, pesticides. Glyphosate, Roundup. It is the most used pesticide in the world. In the US, it's still being used. Multiple countries in the EU, it's now been banned. And there are direct evidence that glyphosate affects reproductive system, affects the male fetus even more. So if you're exposed to glyphosate as a male fetus in the womb, no fault of your own, it's been shown that you'll have more problems with testicular cancer, low testosterone, infertility, and problem with reproductive and sexual development. ED is associated with it, infertility is associated with it. Damn. That's glyphosate. Now, when you think about plastics, the plastic has something called phthalates, and phthalates is what makes plastic flexible. There is something called the phthalate syndrome. Same thing, if you're exposed to phthalate at a certain time of your development as a male, it's been shown that you're going to have lower levels of testosterone. The air we breathe, full of particulates. The food, the air we breathe, our inactivity now, right? You see that before we were out in the sun, lifting heavy things, moving. Now everybody's on their phone, staying inside their room. That cannot be good. The porn addiction, that's a big thing also. Decreases testosterone. The dopamine release that we get from all those highly addictive type of activity. So all of this, and you know, the problem with this, some experts will say, well, we need more studies. Plastic doesn't cause that. We need more studies. Glyphosate doesn't cause that. There's a concept called the exposome. The exposome, it's everything you've been exposed to from the time you were in the womb until now. And the exposome determines, it's the most important determinant of health. So you could have been exposed to some plastics, some pesticides, some chemicals when you were in the womb and it started that. Or you were exposed during your developing years, or even as an adult. And it can affect your sperm production, your testosterone production, your endocrine system, and it makes it that now you're not the best version of who you are. So where my specialty comes in, I recognize this. I recognize that we live in a toxic world. Our endocrine system is being assaulted by all of those toxins. And this is no longer what I learned 30 years ago when I was in med school, that, for example, low testosterone only happens to older men. That's what I used to know. Low T is for guys 60 and 80 years old. And you know, after, and if you want some testosterone, it's good. Now my average patient is 35. Wow. My average patient is 35. It's crazy. I started testosterone replacement for myself at 49. That's when I hit the wall. That's when I felt like, man, you know, mentally, physically, sexually, I wasn't the same. I felt old. Testosterone changed that for me. But what if it happens to you in your 30s, in your 20s, in your 40s? Those are the best years of your life, right? And now we're looking at, that's where I'm optimistic. People are talking more about this. You're looking at guys like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Sylvester Stallone was always the original. Those are the original biohackers, or at least we can look up to them. Sylvester Stallone has been doing it since the 90s, but using targeted supplements, targeted hormones, targeted nutrition, targeted exercise to really transcend all of those things that hold us down and be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I even feel like part of it is breaking a stigma even, where, like, I'm on testosterone, but I know growing up, the thought of steroids, right? It's demonized. And then part of you thinks logically, like, well, look at someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who, I don't know the guy, right? But I would assume he's probably done a lot of performance-enhancing drugs in his life. He still seems relatively healthy. He could be an example of, like, okay, there's all these stories, you're going to die. And we're clearly, the data is otherwise now. And I even know when because I was like these patients, right? I got tested, my testosterone was low.
How old were you when you were tested?
28.
What symptoms were you having?
Fatigue, like low mood. I just
motivation.
I didn't feel good. But if you would have asked me, I would have never thought it was testosterone related. It wasn't until a client I worked with and I did the blood work, and it was kind of shocking to me. It was something never, because in my mind I thought, you're too young.
What can you remember what your testosterone levels were?
I want to say it was around like 480 or something.
So really important point. So I see a lot of young guys like you, mid-20s, coming with, and there's a study that came out of University of Miami. It shows that adolescent and young adult men, meaning from the age of 19 to 39, had a 20% chance of having low T, and their symptoms of low T started about the 400 range. So that's you exactly. Normal testosterone is 300 to 1200. So you're 400, your doctor would be like, no, you're normal, right? We have studies showing that for young men, when you have those symptoms, check your testosterone. And if you're in your 400 range, it may be testosterone. And when we think testosterone, as you said, we think it's for older people. Testosterone is just for muscles or it's for sex.
Yeah.
You never think that your fatigue, your physical energy, your mental energy, low mood, no motivation. That's what that study shows also. That in younger men, it's not really a sexual issue that you have with your testosterone. It's a physical fatigue and a moral fatigue.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you what, I'm happy you did not go that route, because most young men who go with what you go through, they'll go to their primary care doctor. They say that they'll do basic labs. They will never check a testosterone unless you had. And at the end, they'll tell you you're depressed. They'll want to put you on depression medication. Yeah. And if you go down that route, then it makes everything worse.
Yeah.
Whereas you were lucky enough that you found somebody who said it, you check your testosterone, and you went on TRT.
Yeah.
What did it do for you?
Almost, I want to say changed my life.
Say it. Look at the camera.
Yeah,
say
I mean, I tried. And I remember I had a buddy that he started before me, and he goes, the only regret you're going to have is that you didn't get tested sooner. And I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Because, and we're going to segue into this with the Mounjaro and the GLPs, but for me, I looked at testosterone. It was the spark that gave me the lifestyle change that I needed, because for years, I was 145 pounds, drinking 2 mass gainer shakes a day, eating 2,500, 3,000 calories. Could never put on weight,
You're an ectomorph.
Yeah. It was just tough for me. So it was, once I could see actually results happening, and it's not even just the physical, right?
Yeah.
It was the mental.
Self-confidence.
It's like you just have that.
Yeah. That alpha push.
Yeah.
Testosterone is what makes us alpha males. Yeah. And alpha males, I love the term, but I'm also careful with it because there's a negative connotation of toxic masculinity. Yes. But we need alpha. We need that energy. Use it properly. But imagine, think for a second, Chris. If at 28 you had that low T, you felt like this, you never went on testosterone. You would not be where you are today.
No chance.
You would not be where you are today.
Agree with that.
And I see that with my patients. I've been doing it for 15 years. I have guys in their 30s because those are the most productive years of your life.
Yeah.
This is when you want to really establish yourself, right? And if you lack that zest, that oomph, I like to call it, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
But we got to be careful to distinguish between natural steroids and anabolic steroids. Yeah. And that's something we want to talk about. We were talking about this, the trend on TikTok of using trenbolone, all the anabolic steroids. I'm against that. Yeah. Again, the bodybuilding world, they have their world. I try not to be, but in my practice, I discourage the use of anabolic steroids. Why? Because they're not bioidentical. They are synthetically different than your biochemistry, and long-term, you can have issues. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of guys who come to my practice, they've used anabolic steroids for a long time. When they come to me, I give them as good results with bioidentical testosterone and all the other peptides. I try to be as natural because part of my practice is longevity. I want to be sure that not only you feel good now, you look good now, but I'll keep you like this for 20, 40, 60 years. Yeah. So that's when I don't recommend the use of anabolic steroids because there can be a lot of associated long-term side effects. When done responsibly with the right doctor, when you're young, again, I don't condone it, but I understand that people do this. But at some point, you want to transition to a more intelligent hormone replacement where you're really using bioidentical hormones. You're using them for physical, mental, sexual, and spiritual connection. Yeah. It's not about having the biggest biceps. It's about being lean, being athletic, and living your best life. Yeah. So I'm be careful, when we talk about this, I don't want an 18-year-old to say, oh, I'm going to go and get trend because I heard those guys talk about it. I have guys who are 18 who needs testosterone. Yeah. And if they need that, of course, we have the conversation about fertility, what we're going to talk about this later. But if a man needs testosterone and can't self-actualize and be the better version of themselves, and the low T is for whatever reason, right? You aren't overweight or obese or diabetic. I have some guys who come to me, I know their low T is kind of their fault, right? Because they're overweight, they eat the wrong things, they don't exercise, they have low T. But the medical community, traditional medical community, will just shame those guys. We'll tell them, you don't need testosterone, go out and exercise, and then you'll be fine.
Right.
If you have no energy, how can you do this?
Yeah.
So it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
What I do with those patients, if I see that you have low T and you can't change your life, let's give you some testosterone responsibly, the right way. Increase your physical energy, increase your mental energy. Now you feel good enough that you can go to the gym.
Yeah.
And I always say that results beget results.
Yes.
You feel good, you lose the first 10 pounds, or you start putting on muscle, you feel less tired, you want to do better. And then you get the next win, then the next win. Then look at you 8 years later compared to how you were with the low T. Right? So kudos to you, man, and kudos for bringing this to people also.
Yeah, no, it truly was a compounding effect to my life. That's why, and that's where we can segue into the GLP-1s, because I think that's, a big hot topic right now, right?
Big topic, hot topic.
We've talked about it. My sister's in the business. I'm in the business. I have a med spa in Clearwater where we're doing the weight loss. So, as a non-physician, right, the big debate is, it burns fat, but it's also killing your muscle. What are the long-term effects? So let's talk on that.
Yeah. And let me tell you something that most, even doctors don't know. I started using GLP-1 in 2005. Were you aware that those medications have been out since 2005?
No.
So the first GLP-1 was FDA approved and put to use for diabetes in 2005. It was called exenatide. Okay. In my primary care practice, I've been using that since 2005 to treat diabetes. Back then, GLP-1s weren't great for weight loss. It really helped diabetes. So GLP-1 is a class of medications that affect, we found receptors of GLP-1 in the stomach. So they help your body. It decreases digestion, so you're less hungry. Also increases your own production of insulin. That's why it works for diabetes. But also we found GLP-1 receptors in the brain. So it helps with cravings, with your relationship with food and all this. So 2005, I started using it. 2014, the first GLP-1 became FDA approved for weight loss without diabetes. It was called Saxenda or liraglutide. I've been using all that generation. They weren't great for weight loss until Ozempic, semaglutide, came out in 2017. I don't know what they did to the molecule, but all of a sudden, it was a breakthrough medication. That's when people were losing 50 pounds, 100 pounds with GLP-1. So I've seen the evolution of this over the past 20 years, 19 years. And I've seen over the past 7 years, since 2017, that's when they really, so in 2017, everybody's like, oh, GLP-1, what's this? I've been using them since 2005. So I've seen the evolution. So when people say we don't have long-term studies, we do have long-term studies. We don't have long-term studies on the new generation, but it's like the iPhone, right? The iPhone came out 23 years ago. iPhone 15 is amazing. I look at Mounjaro or tirzepatide as the iPhone 15 of the GLP-1 for weight loss. We have a long history of them. But the newer generation are even better. But we've had patients. I have some of my patients who've been on some kind of GLP-1 for 20 years, 19 years. And we see now the studies. So let's go over this. Nothing has been as effective for weight loss than GLP-1. Because before we thought that obesity was a willpower disease, right? That the people who are obese don't have enough willpower to change their lifestyle. And I do believe in personal responsibility. We have the power to choose better. Don't eat crap, go and exercise, and then you'll lose weight. What we started to recognize with the advent of GLP-1 is that it is really a neurobiological disease. Because if I can give you a hormone, GLP-1 is a hormone, and all of a sudden you go from not doing what you knew you were supposed to all of a sudden you do what you're supposed to, and all of a sudden your body can lose weight. It was a neurobiological dysfunction that was in your brain. So that's when it made me realize. And now GLP-1 have the power to change somebody who had no power over food, that food controlled them, to now finally being able to make better decisions. I love the term that they came up with this. It's called the food noise. And GLP-1 decreased the food noise or food chatter. And we all have a little bit of addiction to food, right? And when you deal with weight issues, overweight, that's even more. My overweight patients will tell me that. Not overweight, my people dealing with food addiction. Because food is an addiction.
Yeah.
Our food has turned into the most used drug, especially what is called the SAD, the Standard American Diet, or ultra processed foods. It's crazy. We know we shouldn't be eating like this. You can't take yourself away. The food tastes good. They know how to make it that, man, my weakness is fried chicken. Oh. Man, when I eat fried chicken, my brain lights up. Right? Some people it's Oreo. Some people it's sugar. Some people it's whatever it is, whatever your own addiction is. We all deal with it. Some people deal with it a little better and maintain their weight, so have a better metabolism. Some people it becomes like it's overwhelms your hijack your neural system, and then you can't make the right decision. So this is when I developed a lot more compassion of people dealing with obesity. Or sometimes you don't even need to be obese. You can have what is called skinny fat, right? You don't look obese, but you have a lot of visceral fat. It's called visceral adipose tissue, VAT. That visceral adipose tissue increases inflammation and increases all the risk of chronic diseases like diabetes, heart attacks, cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, and a whole list. So we need to address visceral fat, obesity, and the low muscle mass of sarcopenia. So out of those 20 years that I had as best tools to help people lose weight, there's never been anything like GLP-1. What did we used to have before? The stimulant type medication, phentermine, all the stimulants, all of those. They were okay. I still use them once in a while, but GLP-1 are such a better way to use them because not only is it making you less hungry, tirzepatide specifically has, because the GIP molecule is a fat burner, it's a lipolytic molecule, decreases body fat, but it changes your mind.
It's wild.
So you even see like people who take GLP-1, and there's a study for this, it's going to become FDA approved soon. People don't want to drink as much alcohol. You decrease how much you drink because you just don't want it anymore. Studies are even showing that people don't want to vape as much, don't want to bet as much because it's a dopamine, the reward center. It does something. We don't even understand what it does. But I'm going to tell you, I'm one of the few doctors who has the most experience with GLP-1 medication. In my primary care practice, I have about 150 diabetics on brand name Mounjaro and Ozempic. In my hormone clinic, I have maybe 800 or 1,000 patients taking GLP-1. In my weight loss, maybe 500 patients. And the transformation that I see with those patients, the gaining of willpower, the now saying that I'm empowered to make better decisions. Nothing has been able to do this. So let's address what you were saying about the decrease in muscle. And it is possible. Studies at first showing that up to 40% of your weight loss could be with muscle, could be from muscle. New studies are showing it's not as much. And what I do in my practice to prevent that, it is a possibility. And it's not when you lose 10 or 20 pounds. By the time you lose 30, 40, 60 pounds, you can lose a lot of muscle. What I tell my patients from day one, if you're going to take this, do resistance training. You know, people are afraid to lift weights. I'm going to ask somebody, are you exercising? Yeah, I exercise a lot. What do? I go walking. That's great. I like zone 2 cardio, but you need to stimulate your muscle. So do some kind of resistance training, take enough protein. If you're going to lose weight, you need about 1 gram to 1.5 gram per kilogram of protein. So optimize your protein. Make sure you stimulate your muscle, you do your cardio, and if you have obesity, about 40 to 45% of patients who have insulin resistance have either low testosterone or ineffective testosterone. So my patients who come to me with obesity, I check their levels, I check their testosterone, I check their blood sugar control. And if I see that they have low testosterone, the combination of tirzepatide or any GLP-1 with testosterone for both men and women is life-changing because the GLP-1 will help you lose weight, lose belly fat, lose that visceral adipose tissue, the belly fat, and the testosterone with the right amount of protein and resistance training, you gain muscle mass. So which other program do you know can do this? Lose body fat, gain muscle mass. Right? And
from what you talk about, what's going on in the brain. Because it's wild. Immediately what I thought of was Wellbutrin and Chantix, where it's amazing. And that's why, I'm critical of big pharma, but there's a lot of good stuff out there, right? When it comes to the fentanyl epidemic, it's a different ballgame.
You're a different ballgame.
This is so freaking awesome and exciting. The brain part is what really fascinates me.
What's fascinating
is because you mix that with a little bit of testosterone, I can't even imagine the changes. I'm excited for your patients.
Yeah.
That's all.
And for women also, we're going to talk about how women need testosterone.
Let's
also.
do that, because that's come up a lot recently. Even I think we were talking about it in the car.
Yeah. So really important. Let's talk about women a little bit. So if you look at what's happening with women, when women get exposed to the same thing we get exposed to, plastics or the xenoestrogen, all those endocrine disrupting chemicals, they tend to have a lot of estrogen properties. So when a man gets exposed to those EDCs or xeno means outside estrogen, right? Men develop low testosterone because when you're exposed to estrogen, it decreases your pituitary, your brain output to tell your body make more testosterone.
Right.
So there's a negative feedback loop. So high testosterone, xenoestrogen to men causes low testosterone, infertility, ED, and all those things. When women are exposed to those high level of xenoestrogens, what we see PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, where women have too much testosterone when they are young. So, and too much estrogen. So you'll see younger women have early puberty. They've pushed down the age of puberty to women, to young girls now. I think it's at 8. You even have girls as young as 6 who start developing
This is because of imbalance in hormones?
Estrogen. Remember, estrogen is the female hormone that make women go into their period.
So it's activating earlier.
So it's activating it earlier. Then it's associated with things like fibroids, endometriosis, because too much estrogen. You're an estrogen dominant.
Which is more common nowadays,
cancer,
I feel like.
so much more common. And then what happens, so that's in the beginning of the life. So PCOS has increased so much. Why? 40 years ago, 30 years ago when I was in med school, they barely talked about PCOS. Now, so many women are dealing with PCOS. And then now, at the end of their cycle, you see women are starting to go into early menopause, early failure of the ovarian failure, premature ovarian failure. And what's the first thing that usually happens when a woman goes into menopause or premenopause? You lose testosterone. So women will tell you that they're tired, they have low energy, low libido, their muscle mass, they can't maintain their muscle mass. So the way women tend to need hormones, men are so simple. When we lose our hormone, all we need is testosterone. Women, when they lose, first they need testosterone. They lose testosterone. They lose progesterone, kind of about the same time. So sleep becomes more difficult. Anxiety, when you have low progesterone, you tend to have more anxiety. You tend to have more difficulty sleeping. And then eventually, when they go through menopause, they lose their estrogen. So estrogen is the last thing that they use. So for women, if you even like at 40, 35, 40 years old, if you feel really tired, you see your mood is not the same. You don't have the same feeling, you're losing your muscle mass, you're gaining fat, you should check your testosterone level. And right now, testosterone has been FDA approved for women for only one reason, to increase sexual desire. How much of a male-dominated society do we have? Only organization, right? So the FDA only approved testosterone for women if they have low sexual desire, because that's what happens with premenopause and postmenopause.
Yeah, libido.
Ask women about this, they'll tell you. Some women, it doesn't happen. They go through menopause, actually, they become more horny. That's the minority. Most women, they start losing their testosterone. When they start losing their estrogen, it's not, lubrication is not the same, desire is not the same, orgasm is not the same. And that creates difficulty in the couple. So imagine a couple where you have the guy dealing with ED and the woman is dealing with her issues of testosterone. That's not a great couple. No. Now imagine a couple, which is me and my wife. We're both on testosterone. We've been married 30 years and life is great. So we're optimized and we make sure that we address those things, and that got us closer because we realize as human beings, we're going to go through difficult moments.
Sure.
Our biology is going to fail us sometime. Yeah. So I'm a biological expert replacement in human systems because I know if I fix your biology, your psychology is better. Right? If you have better hormones, if you're not tired, you have more muscle, you look better, you're not overweight, food doesn't control you, you can be better. Yeah. You can be a better human. Yeah. And at the end of the day, my goal is not physical or biological improvement. I do biological improvement so that you can be a better human. Now imagine a planet that 50% of people live their life like this.
A completely different world.
Completely different.
And you said it earlier, and I thought about it, something where essentially people operate in chaos, I feel. No one's at ease with themselves or their body. And I thought it on the way here, just the traffic, all this, everyone is not, I feel like no one is thriving, like you said. How good can society be when probably over half the people aren't happy with themselves, with their body, and how much of it is out of your control, right? The hormones.
And wow, man, it's profound talk, because this is what I deal a lot with, right? How do you keep a positive attitude and thrive in so much negativity? And there's so much negativity.
It's hard.
Right? So how do you embrace life? There's a polarity to life. There's two sides. I love the yin and yang of life. Our Western thinking tends to be it's one way, right? It's only one side.
Yeah.
We need to embrace both sides. That there is a negative side, but there's a positive side. Which one do you choose to look at? There's a Native American say that inside of us, inside of each one of us, there's two wolves. An evil wolf and a good wolf. Which one do you feed?
Yeah.
Whichever one you feed is the one that's going to dominate. So there's another teacher I like to listen to, Abraham Hicks, and she tells you life is being able to master satisfaction and eagerness. So realizing that in life, there's things you can control, things you can't. Focus on the things you can. Love yourself, love everything that's around you, no matter what. At the same time, try to change. Be eager to change. Be eager to be more positive. But while you're doing this, be good right here, right now. So an easy example, you're in traffic. You're in there. Can you control the traffic? No. But if you react, you're angry, you're honking your horn, you're going like this, you're decreasing your vibration. Now flip that script. You're in traffic, you put a song that you like, or you put affirmatives, actions, and then it's the same traffic. When you're going to come here, your energy is going to be different. And that's the power that you have. You don't have the power to change the traffic. You have the power to control what you can control, and what you cannot, you leave it to God, you leave it to karma, you leave it to the universe. Whichever word you want to use, that's not in your control. You can only control you. And inside of you, you realize you have those two, the dark and the light, the satisfaction and the eagerness, the love and the hate, the positive and the negative. You try to feed the light, the positive, the satisfaction right here, right now. But you work on the other one.
Yeah, it's powerful. And it's so much easier to have that perspective change when you feel good and you look good.
So I have a lot of little Dr. Rudyism, right? So my favorite one to say is when you feel better, you can be better.
Yeah.
When you look better, you can be better.
Yeah.
And the goal is to be better. We are human beings, but we do a lot. We're more human doing. We need to be more. And when I say be, you're good right here, right now. So when I do my consultation with my overweight patients, that's really always very difficult. So they come here first. Oh my God, my friend came to you, took GLP-1 and testosterone. Their life has changed. I can't wait. And I'm like, great, you're excited. But their point is always, I'll be so much better when I lose 50 pounds. And I'm like, wait a second. You are amazing right here, right now. With that extra 50 pounds, with your belly hanging out, with all of this. You're amazing, you're beautiful. Know this and live this. You're not going to be amazing when you lose 50 pounds, because if you keep that, when you lose that 50 pounds, you'll always be like, oh, I need this. It's called destination happiness. So I tell my patients, be happy right now. That's the satisfaction. But at the same time, be eager about what's coming. Yes, you want to push for what's coming, but don't say, I'll be good when.
Yeah.
Be good now. It's not easy.
No.
Our society and our human brain is never satisfied.
Right.
How do you get the satisfaction now? As you said first, you want to feel better physically, but even if you don't, if you focus on gratitude, that's why for me, gratitude. So I have 3 G's that I live by. My 3 G's are: number 1, I live in gratitude. I wake up every day and I say, I'm blessed, I'm happy, even when bad things happen. My 2nd G is I live in grace. I stay in God's grace. And I'm no longer religious, but I'm deeply spiritual. And I say God's grace, and God for me is the universe.
Yeah.
But I live connected to that mystery. I'm in God's grace. And my 3rd G, I'm grounded. I'm still human. I like to put my feet on the ground. I realize that I'm human, that I have limitations. But whenever my limitations of grounding of human stop me, I go to my first 2 G's, gratitude and grace. gratitude, grace, grounding.
Damn, that's solid.
Isn't that solid, baby?
I'm saying, like, I need to make a little poster of this in my room or something.
Yeah, but we each need some little cliche sentences,
100%.
platitudes. Like lean into teachers Rumi is one of my biggest teachers. When Rumi says you're not just a drop in the ocean, you're the whole ocean in one drop.
Yeah.
And you do a psychedelic treatment, or you do a prayer, or you do a breath work, and you feel that oneness of the world.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than this as a human to understand that, or not understand it, to feel it. Because you can understand it on paper unless you feel it yourself.
Yeah.
That's when it opens up yourself. And now you're connected to what I call love with a capital L. And that love with a capital L for me is God.
Yeah.
Is what the power that created 100 trillion galaxies.
Yeah.
I can't understand that force. It's way too big.
Yeah.
They call it the Alpha and the Omega. It's you can't say it. Jewish Kabbalah tells you can't even say the name of God because we can't understand it.
Yeah.
It's a vibration. It's an energy. All I know is I'm trying to get my energy as close to that energy as I can.
Yeah.
And the way I can do this is keeping my gratitude, my grace, and also taking care of my physical body.
Yeah.
Because when my physical body is better, my energy can be better.
Yeah, that's huge. That's something I think can be translated for any part of life, because I constantly, even with business stuff, it's easy to worry, being a business owner, and I always go back to gratitude. I remember some guy, attitude of gratitude. Yeah. And that was one of those that just always stuck with me, where even yesterday I was kind of stressed and I sat on the balcony and it's like, take a few breaths.
Yeah.
Even the music, I've noticed I'll put on some jazz or something and it's like, dude, it's all vibration, right? All vibration. If you're listening to some high intensity, fast music, your vibration is high intensity. Like, even in the morning now, you said that gratitude, I literally try to take a couple minutes to just be like, thank you, my body, thank you for letting me rest. There's so much more mystery to us than we're led to believe.
So much more. Like, so you saw my sign, my Jamaican sign outside. My wife is from Jamaica. Jamaicans have a saying that says, big up yourself. Right? And you took a picture of it. So big up yourself, the Jamaican dialect, it's more congratulate yourself, put yourself, good job. But the way I interpret it, it's whenever I'm starting to feel life is weighing on me, I have some issues, I put in my mind, big up yourself, expand yourself. You're so much more than this little human body. You're so much more than your problems. Open up. Expand, big up yourself, right? And I see it resonated with you. And Rumi said something, and I'm going to say another thing of Rumi. Rumi said, stop acting so small. You are the whole universe in ecstatic motion. So we are children of God. We are part of God. We are God. We are the individuation of the energy of God. So when we'll tie down, it's called reductive thinking, reductionism. We reduce this thing that we are into our body. We're so much more than this. But it's hard for us to get there. It's not easy. I think spiritual maturity, experience, connection, groundedness, experience with psychedelics or with prayer, experiencing love. Rumi again said, it's through the wound that light enters. So for a lot of people, for them to get there, they have to go through something really traumatic. And my traumatic experience, and I share that, I'm very open about this. I've lived my life pretty good, but I was very materialistic, reductionist. We're dust, we'll go back to dust. I believe only what I can see. I grew up Catholic, but the Catholic religion no longer fed my soul. I couldn't see that there's a guy with a long beard and he's the one directing if I'm going to go to hell or to paradise. So it didn't do it for me. And then so I became an agnostic, materialistic, reductive materialist. And then my brother committed suicide 7 years ago. And that was my wound. That was my pain. And with this, I was kind of lost. And when we're lost, business people, what we do, we work more. Put a wall around us and we work more. That's what I did. And I lost my connection. And that's when I went to Mexico and I did my first psychedelic experience. And that was transformative.
What led you to that? I mean, I know you said, obviously, your brother, but Who planted the seed that was even an option?
I never did drugs in my life before. Very in the box type of guy. And a friend of mine, I went to Boston. I'll never forget that. And I'm always grateful to that guy. And I was going to be a medical director of a medical marijuana practice in Boston. Mm-hmm. And he saw me. That was 2 months after my brother passed. And again, I kept working, right? But he saw me. He was like, Rudy, come here. Yeah. I see something in you. You going to Mexico? Go see my friend. I'm like, do what? He's like, go see him. I didn't even do research. My wife went with me. We did no research, and we did 5-MeO DMT. Again, I don't recommend anybody to go and do this. Sure. I went out of the country. It's not legal in this country. The only legal psychedelic here in this country is ketamine, which we'll talk about. But this was a personal decision for me. And I went and I did that, and I experienced a near-death experience. I went to the light. Mm-hmm. So I went there with no expectations of what could happen. And you know, the 5-MeO DMT, it's crazy what I did. It's the poison that's on the back of
the toad venom, right?
Toad venom. Yeah. And I went and did that with a shaman, with the setting, but I didn't even know I needed this. Yeah. And I did it, man. And I went to the light. I saw a white light. That's all I remember. I saw a white light and I felt ecstatic. And it's about a 15-minute. And then when I came back, I saw my brother. I saw the energy of my brother that was good. And then I felt a weight lifted off my shoulder. And I cried and I felt love. And I felt, because my religious background told me that my brother committed suicide, he's not going to go to paradise. Mm-hmm. So although I was like, I don't believe in this, but the back of my mind, I'm like, why did he do this? And I went and I saw him as a beautiful light energy. And then I was like, oh my God. And then since then, I've done more research. And I went and I was like, what happened to me? Yeah. And it is really, and they've done studies now. They look at near-death experience, people who had near-death flatline, and they lope at people who've had a mystical experience.
Right, with and without psychedelics, right?
Without psychedelics. They look at experienced meditators, breath work, and they've seen that they have common correlates in the brain. It's the same areas of the brain that one of the area gets lower blood flow. It's called the default mode network. It's a part of some neurons that make the idea of who we are. That area decreases and new areas have hyperconnectivity. And that's why you see light, you see time and perception changes. But they've seen that when that happens, people have a different perspective on life. So they followed people who've had near-death experience. And they see that long-term, they'll kind of have the same changes that people who've had mystical experience. And let me give you an example of something really interesting. Around the time that my brother passed, my roommate from college lost his son, who was 21 years old. Tragedy, right? That's one of the hardest things you can experience. You lose your kid. And he's very religious. His reaction was he went to the church. He was all into the church, was praying. And he had an experience that was similar to my psychedelic experience. So he went, it's actually described in different books of the Bibles as the upper room experience. And he told me he went there and they did 6 hours of fasting and they were praying on him. And he said at one time they were praying on him, he fell and he lost who he was. He told me he went somewhere and I'm like, that's a psychedelic experience. You had what I had with a substance, you had it with prayer and fasting and energy of what was around you. And that healed him from the death of his son. Because you can never heal, because you miss the physicality of the person. But you realize that they're not gone. They're somewhere else and it is what it is and you accept the reality as it is. So both me and him got transformed. We arrived to the same place from different manners.
Right? That's powerful. I'm glad you shared that because my mystical experience was mostly through psychedelics, but I have friends that it was more of in a church type setting too, where one of them literally was like, dude, I saw Jesus. I'm like, good. Like you probably did. Good. Like I know it's possible. And that's where even the fact that I can say, oh, okay, and fully be like, I believe him. And not be like, you're crazy. Exactly. You hallucinated. Exactly. Which is so devaluing to everyone that's had these experiences. Your friend be like, oh, you guys are just crazy, right? Or it's just the drugs, or well, if it's prayer. And that's where I think it's powerful because even with breath work, I know I can kind of tap in now to that void, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yes.
That where I can just feel I'm there and I can feel my body almost vibrating.
Yeah.
But what you described is exactly what I feel is that connectedness, the light. And I heard a video yesterday where it's like, if we could have people just understand that there's more than the physical body, that this is one chapter of the game, right? That I think was the big game changer for me. And I know a big reason why I started researching this was because I'd seen documentaries of terminally ill cancer patients go do a psychedelic ceremony, completely lose their fear of death and be at complete peace.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
There's something to that.
Because I was 22 at the time when I started researching. I didn't really know much about death, but I definitely was programmed of the fear of death. Yeah. Or now I'm like, I got a bunch of people waiting for me when I get out of this skin suit on the other side. So
you're still going to try to be the best you can be in this life and prolong life as much as we can. But when you lose, because we all live with this, every human has that, conscious or unconscious. We have a fear that this physical body is all we are. That's what our ego understands of who we are. And when that self-structure disintegrates, that we're done. We're not.
That was a huge fear of mine. I'd lose myself.
Lose that, yes.
And
it's a universal fear. Even if people who don't realize they have it, in the back of their mind it's there, because your ego, your mind, that default mode network wants to continue to exist in the physical. And I'm going to tell you, I love my physical world. I love enjoying the physical world. But now that I've taken that dimension that we're more than this, you're right. Imagine a world where more people live like this. You become more tolerant. You become more loving. You understand the oneness. You truly understand. So we'd have a more tolerant world. So despite all the negativity that's happening in our world, and we're not even going to start citing all the negativity, but there is a lot around us. My optimism is that more people are doing that work and realizing they're more than just the physical, and I can be more tolerant of others because we are one. Yeah. Those are cliche. I'm sure some people will be like, oh my God, listen to them. But if you talk like this, it's because you haven't experienced it. And so my journey has been, after I became an agnostic, I became spiritual again by reading a lot of Buddhism and Hinduism, because they really understood the way it was. And I even like the saying, Namaste, means the light in me recognizes the light in you.
I love that.
So, and people will do this. I recognize when somebody's connected because they are so much more open. I say I love you so much easier now. I respect other people's opinions. I'm like, that's your journey. If you're not there, I'm not going to be here to change you. If you're further along and you have, as you said, people who said, I've had that experience, I recognize that. And I'm like, great. But keep going on that journey of oneness, of tolerance, of being the best version of yourself, because that's the only thing we can control. And if we change each individual, that's how eventually we can change the collective. If I'm complaining about the collective, I can't change the collective. I can change me, and I can change my small sphere of influence. A few people around me, I try to make them, but I don't force it upon them. I try to preach by example.
That clicked for me too, big time, where the energy trying to change people, or even caring of what other people's thoughts, opinions, it's like, you're on a completely different adventure in the game than I am. And that's cool. And that's why it's like, who am I to, I didn't live their life. Their whole life molded those experiences. So one thing powerful you said, and I love this, was the experience it gave you something you didn't even know you needed. And I feel I resonate with that. So you had this experience, we're down in Mexico, you did the 5-MeO-DMT. At what point did you say, I need to start implementing. I want to practice this somehow medically, right? I want to utilize these psychedelic experiences and integrate into my medical practice.
It was a journey, because when I came back, I needed to understand, what did I just do?
Oh, for sure.
This wasn't just, and as the scientist,
I can't even imagine for a physician, because you guys are so black and white, man. And I mean that respectfully,
No, completely. But that's what opened up. Then I came back and I was like, there's something there. So I poured into the literature. I've done a lot of research. I've looked at the whole studies. The first documented use of psychedelics goes back to 7,000 years ago.
Yeah.
What do you think all of our ancestors, what do you think even Plato, Socrates, all of them, they found in the Indus Ganges, in India, everywhere, they found residues of psychedelics. Right. There's even something I love, the stone ape theory, that says that our ancestors were able to kind of take such big leaps into creativity and human innovations because they were able to consume magic mushrooms. Yeah. And there's more studies kind of proving that. Joe Rogan talked about this.
That's where I heard this.
And he got a lot of flack about it, and studies are now coming up. I believe in this. Yeah. Because what opens up, animals take this. Why do we have those receptors? And it's unnatural. So ketamine is synthetic, but mushrooms, ayahuasca, 5-MeO-DMT, all those things are natural that indigenous cultures have used for thousands of years. So when I came back from my experience, I was like, wow, what is this? I never learned this. So what is this thing? So I started reading. I read all the books about psychedelics. I read Buddhism. I started doing comparative religious studies to be like, and then I reread my Bible. And when you reread that Bible with that, you see that the Bible is a story, but when you distill it, it's the same. Yeah. We are God's children. We are made at His image, right? It's the Holy Trinity. You, the human body, the soul, which the Hindu call Atman, and God, that the Hindus call Brahman. Brahman is the whole. We're individuation of the whole, and we have a physical body. That's the Trinity. Number 3, that's a mystical number. Yeah. And when I say mystical, it's not magical. Mystical just means it explains a lot of the energy. Tesla was a big guy who believed in number 369. So I went and studied all of those things. I tried to understand, and I looked at neuroscience books because I needed to know what part of my brain got stimulated. Yeah. That's when I found the studies on near-death experience, the default mode network, that part of our brain that tells us who we are, that when you take psychedelics, it desynchronizes those neurons and new neurons start firing. So I understood the neurobiological basis of psychedelics. Then I look at the psychological effects, and it made me a better person. It made me a better physician. So now sometimes I'll talk to my patients, my usually first visit is, okay, let's talk about testosterone, let's talk about helping you lose weight, let's fix your hormones, let's fix physical. Right. Then I do a follow-up, physical, on my 2 months follow-up, 70%, 75% of their physical has gotten better. Then I work on the mind. Let's make sure you have those 3 Gs. Let's make sure you don't live in victimhood. Let's make sure that you have a more positive outlook. Then at some point, I'll be like, now, what's your spiritual connection? Usually when I say that, my patient's like, oh, what? What? Doc, no, I'm not here to talk about it.
They're like, you're my doctor. I'm not here to talk about that.
I'm your healer. Yeah. I'm here to talk about physical, mental, and spiritual optimization. And my psychedelic experience made me realize that if we just focus on the physical optimization, which before I did psychedelics, I was physically optimized. I wasn't spiritually optimized. And when you add that dimension to healing, that's when I can be a true healer. Yeah. That's when I can really help change my patients for the best. So I like to talk to my patients about this, and I don't impose my views, but I said, whichever way you can feed your soul, go back to it. So some patients, it's prayer, it's in whatever their religion, but I said, go deeper. Try to experience that personal connection with the divine, the way your culture or your religion interprets it. But don't just stay at the surface. Go deeper. Have a personal experience. So when I added that, so before my goal as a doctor was, I want to retire by the time I'm 55. I'm turning 55 next year. I'm just starting. Yeah. Because I discovered that I can bring so much more, and the world needs it. So there's a concept called Ikigai. Yep. Ikigai, right? It's a Venn diagram of 4 different things. I found my Ikigai. So everybody who's listening, there's 4 bubbles to Ikigai. So you wanna, it's a reason for being. What do you want to do in life? Find something that you love doing. You're really good at it. You get compensated enough for it that you don't feel resentment. You can live a good life, and that the world needs. If you find something that satisfied all 4 of this, you'll never want to retire. You'll work happy. You're good at it. You love it. You get compensated for it, and the world needs it. I'm living my ikigai now. And I hope everybody finds their ikigai.
Yeah, it's a Japanese concept, right?
Japanese concept for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And it's really for what you do in life, your career, your position. Look it up, ikigai. And it may be that, for example, I have a lot of patients in my practice when I say that. They may love what they do, they're good at it, they make money, but the world doesn't need it. A lot of my accountants, CPAs, and those kind of guys are like, there's the finance guy. Right? They're like, but I don't find, I'm like, that's okay. So find a hobby that then satisfy something that the world needs. Go and volunteer, do something good for others, be in service, right? Even if you have two different things that satisfy your ikigai, and maybe when you retire, you have one that do all four. Yeah. I'm lucky that my actual work satisfies all four of them. And if you can do that, it's good. So I encourage everybody listening, Google ikigai, look at those four, see which bubbles that you in it, the bubbles you don't, find a way, even if it's a hobby, fill up that bubble also.
I think that's such a better way of saying, find what you're good at and you'll never work a day in your life. And it's funny you say that, because I think when I was 21, 22, all I cared about was the money, right? Yeah. And I think that now we talked about it in the car on the way here, like I could never go be an accountant or work some 9-to-5 type thing ever again, because I need to feel that I'm serving the world.
That's the bubble of the world needs it.
So,
and I'm sorry, I still want to make money. Yeah. I still, because money helps us live a better life, a better world. You can do so much more, but I balance it with the other things,
which is huge, because I think right now, especially with social media, there's just emphasis on money and success, right? And we have and especially as a young man, I talk about guys this. As a young man, you're really motivated by two things: money and women.
Yeah.
And then you get there, and then you realize, all right, well, this isn't filling the void. This was fun for a while, but this isn't doing everything, and it's kind of maturing into needing something deeper. And I mean, you don't have to look far. I see a lot of very successful guys that are very unhappy, make a lot of money, and I'm like, dude, how long are you going to play this game just chasing the dopamine, right?
Chasing that dopamine,
So in these situations, are these the type of patients that then you recommend, hey, maybe you should consider a ketamine protocol?
You know what's difficult, unfortunately, in our society now, they've pathologized the use of ketamine or psychedelics. So to be eligible to get ketamine in this country, you have to suffer from something. You have to have anxiety, depression, PTSD, or addiction. Those are the accepted diagnosis that you can do with this. We use a lot of the diagnosis of anxiety or dysthymia. Most of us, you have something we're not happy in. So that's why we're allowed to use some ketamine off-label to help you use with the angst of like the anxiety. Most of us have some anxiety and depression. But Timothy Leary, who's a very controversial guy in psychedelics, said something that I love. How about using psychedelics for the betterment of well people?
Right.
You don't have to have a disease to do this. But when you do this, exactly what it does, it's when you don't find your purpose. And people think purpose is what I'm going to do for work. Your purpose is to realize that we are all one, and you are part of that collective. Be the best version of you. That way the collective goes forward. If you're not the best version of yourself, you don't help the collective. So to me, finding that deep purpose of who you are, how can you serve the collective, and being in service is the best way to do this. That's the bubble of ikigai. The world needs it. There's so many ways to think about it, but at the end of the day, when people say, and I remember being in college, I didn't understand all this yet. My focus was on advancing my career, making money, being with women until I found my wife. And in 20, when you're young, your hormones kind of drive you to this. But at some point, you need to make, and the earlier you make that mature switch to there's way more than the pursuit of money, of sex, than the pursuit of status. We all go through this. I'm not being here saying that I didn't go through this. I went through those moments of being kind of a toxic masculinity, for lack of a better word. You know, all I wanted was having sex with as many women as I could and doing anything I wanted to make money. I've always kind of been ethical, but some people go the other way. But no matter what, we all at some point wanted to be like, I want to make money, I want to advance my career, and I want as many partners, sexual partners as I can. Then I was able to make that transition into a more mature, okay, there's more to life than this. And again, it kept going until I had my big hit at 47 when my brother passed. And that changed everything for me. So what I tell people, don't wait to have such a big hit to change your life. When you understand that, and that's why I like talking to younger people and to younger people to really try to be like, don't wait for that big wound, that big pain. Start dipping your toe into the universe, into the energy that's there, and you're going to see how much better your life becomes.
I totally agree with you. And I'm newer to it, right? I mean, I always had a belief in a universe, God, definitely grew up more Christian, religious, and even, you know, I don't even think you can avoid expanding after you've dipped your toes and you start to realize there's more. But even little things, I'm noticing people just going to the beach to ground more. I love now that I'm seeing more people doing the little connecting, right? Getting the sun in the morning, standing in the grass. It's like I'm seeing it more, and I think people are realizing. I walked last Friday, I had lunch with a friend, and we went and walked the beach after 5 minutes. He goes, "You feel that?" He goes, "You feel it? Dude, that sand on your feet. I already feel it." And I was like, and even I'm like, dang, like I even want to be more aware of that level of consciousness. And I am more now where you said being. Enjoy the beauty, enjoy the earth.
Just being.
Slow down a little bit.
Amazing.
Stop chase.
And I'm so, again, optimistic about the world. How old are you again, Chris?
35.
35. So I'm 54, 50. We're 20 years different. So we're a different generation. But I'm seeing more and more in your generation. And what we're doing we need more foot soldiers like you, like me, who live it, show it. And as you said, I see more people doing it. There's a much more emphasis, but we need even more. We need more to do, not major things, being, enjoying the little things, being grateful, understanding you have God's grace in you, no matter what. So a big word for me is that no matter what, unconditional. That it's not when, it's not, because I'm like this, that I can't be. You are a child of God. You are part of the light, no matter where you are in life. No matter what. And then find those little biohacking things, right? Where you ground, you put your feet in the sand or in the grass, you get sun in the morning, you eat healthy, whole foods, you think better thoughts. When you do the sum of all those little things, will biohack yourself into a better physical, mental, and spiritual self.
It's like what you said to your patients when they're down on themselves. You already are powerful. You are that person already.
Right now.
I mean,
right now.
Because I've been guilty of, what did you call it? Destination happiness. When I get this money or this car or this, it's never ending.
And it's human nature. And I still do this. I'm not going to sit here to say like I don't have this, but I'm starting to recognize it more. I'm getting better at it. The awareness. And when I see like, oh, I'm going down that path. Okay, reground yourself, refocus, realign yourself. Keep your vibration high. I may still want that goal, but my perception of the goal has changed. Because I'm very ambitious. I have a lot of big goals in my life, but my perception of it has changed. My goals are not just to accumulate as much money as I can, although I want to make money, but my goal is I'm a healer at heart. Right? My goal is to touch and change as many lives as I can. And what I've realized in life, we each have our roles. And we need to see some people are educators, some people are entertainers, some people are whatever it is that you are in life. Not everybody's a healer. There's a lot of healers. There are a lot of educators. There's a lot of people who need to do good business. So maybe you're a business person. That's your role. But in that role, be the best version of you, who you are, with the broader concept of we're all connected. If we all do this, imagine the world we live in.
We're completely different.
Right?
I hope for it in our lifetime. I think it's a great point. You don't need to wait for shit to hit the fan to start healing. You can start the journey at any time. And I agree with you. I think people always think, oh, I didn't have some trauma. You don't need it, dude. Just go try to connect even deeper. It's out there. And I think the world is so much more mysterious and mystical and beautiful than we ever know.
And this is where, like what you just said, when I say no matter what, be good no matter what, thrive no matter what, connect no matter what, some people argue for their what. They'll be like, no, I get what you're saying. But you know what happened to me? My mom left me. I was, like whatever happened to you? Elie Wiesel wrote an amazing book about his resilience after he came out of the Holocaust, and where most of his family was killed. He was almost dead, and he came out like skeleton. And he wrote a book about the resiliency of the human spirit. And 20, 30 years later, he remarried, he had a full life, and he enjoyed a full life. This is a what? And he still was able to overcome that and live a good life. So there's a great French proverb that says, when I look at myself, I feel sorry for myself. When I compare myself, I feel better about myself. Although you don't want to compare yourself, but there's always somebody worse than you.
Sure.
So whatever you're complaining about, there's somebody that wishes they were in your place.
Yep.
Wherever you are in life,
Yep.
there's always somebody worse. So why compare and why complain? Just say, it is what it is. It sucks.
Yep.
What I'm going through now. So sometimes when I have my down moments, I don't say I'm depressed. I say I'm experiencing some moments of depression. It's just an experience that's going to go through me. Yeah. But I don't identify with the low energy moment.
Yeah.
That shift in perspective can really help you change. So, and I realize that if I just am experiencing a down moment, I'm not depressed, I'm not down, I'm still light, I'm still amazing. This too shall pass. And then that passes, like everything. But that shift in perception, for me, what helped me was the psychedelics and the understanding of that vision that will be bigger than our human self. So big up yourself.
Heck yeah. Big up yourself. I think that's a good stopping point. We can come back for a nice round two and dive deeper in the psychedelics and kind of that part of the journey. Dr. Rudy, where do people find you? Where do they learn more? Where do they get their best self? Social media, Instagram, TikTok, Dr. Rudy Best Life. So it's Dr. Rudy Best Life. Our website for our clinic, we have Medical Health Institute for our hormone replacement clinic. I also have Dr. Weight Loss Miami for my weight loss. And I'm trying to be out there. I'll be on more podcasts. My goal is to have my own podcast. I'm writing a book on GLP-1 and what they're doing for us. So I'm going to try to be more and more, and I hope me and you will do more of those. Absolutely. Thanks, Dad. Awesome.